But there is a distinction that needs to be made clear. This is not someone coming to learn from you, or who's never been able, or you'd never be able to witness to an unbeliever. Think about that. If someone's coming to ask you about the things of God, and they are asking you questions, this does not apply. You don't close the door on them. Or otherwise, how could we witness? So we need to make that distinction clear. I want to be sure you understand the difference. We are to answer the questions of the uninformed, of those who want to know about Jesus. Yet we are never to affirm or to provide a platform to the deceivers. The fastest way to put them out of business is to make sure you never receive them. So stated one more time, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, not meaning someone ignorant, not meaning someone ignorant who wants to understand the truth, but rather describing an apostate, lying deceiver who's looking for a foothold within the fellowship believers, that's the one you don't receive into your house. So I know that was a lot of words. So someone who genuinely wants to understand Christ and wants to have an answer from you for the hope that you have, we spend all the time that God would provide with them. But when someone's coming and trying to twist the gospel, confront the gospel, distract from the gospel, or add to the gospel, those are the ones that we turn away. It's that simple. Now he could have said, and you might have thought about this, don't receive him in your church. And that would be true as well. But then the churches were not the first place they would go, as I've kind of already indicated today. Why? Because the churches were protected by what group of men? The elders. And what was necessary to be an elder? Well, from 1 Timothy 3, the end of verse 2, they are required to be able to teach. Skilled teachers. From that Greek word, I remember I like that word, didactic teaching. Well, it comes from this Greek right here. Didactikos, where we get the English word didactic. That's the word used here for the requirements for an elder. So you wouldn't expect a false teacher to just invade a church. That's a frontal assault where he's very unlikely to succeed. A biblical church will have elders to protect the congregation from unsound doctrine. That's one of our most important roles. As is clear from Titus 1:9, elders are holding fast the faithful word which is in accordance with the teaching, so that he will be able to both exhort in sound doctrine and refute those who contradict. So in most cases, these rebellious men don't come directly to the church. Although that is their ultimate goal, they don't come there first. They go to the homes. They head behind enemy lines through media and even on your front porch, or through music, I might say. They want to find their way to those who are vulnerable. 2 Timothy 3, verses 5 and 6 warn us, these false teachers have come holding to a form of godliness without power. Among them there are those who enter into households and captivate weak women. So Paul had warned Timothy of the very thing we see described in 2 John. They look for the weak, the sympathetic, the tender-hearted, and the compassionate in order to embed themselves there and start their consumption of those people's resources and the confusion of their minds. And the instruction is clear, don't let them in your house. Psalms 1:1 reminds us, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. But that's not all it says here. You know there's a few more verses left. They are so dangerous, not only do you not let them in, look at the end of verse 10. With the same apostolic authority, John instructs, do not give them a greeting. Now this is the one that's worth clarifying because this is where the Greek is a little more detailed than what we have in our English translation. The Greek word for greeting here means more than our understanding in the English. It means to give a greeting with joy, literally meaning to rejoice when you see them. That was a standard Christian. That's unloving, and you've got that right as well, because nothing is as dangerous as deception, and since nothing as precious as the truth. Am I right? So let's examine some other scriptures to see if John is really commanding anything new here, because you remember he opened the letter by saying, it's not that I'm bringing you a new commandment, but that which you've been taught. Well, let's see some of those passages. We can go to the Old Testament, Psalm 26, Psalm of David, verses 4 and 5. I do not sit with deceitful men, nor will I go with pretenders. I hate the assembly of evildoers. And yes, in the Hebrew, that means hate. I will not sit with the wicked. John 10:10, the first portion. The thief comes only to kill, to steal and kill and destroy. Moving to Paul in his writing to the Ephesian elders as he was heading to Jerusalem in Acts chapter 20, starting with verse 29. I know that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And from among your own selves men will rise, speaking perverse things to draw away the disciples after them. And then in Titus 1, we've seen verse 9 just a little while ago. Let's look at verse 10. For there are many rebellious men, empty talkers and deceivers, who must be silenced because they are upsetting whole families, teaching things that they should not teach for the sake of sordid gain. So no, John is not bringing any new teaching in this epistle. He is simply addressing a particular problem. Any hospitality, any commendation, any acceptance of them would create disastrous exposure to Antichrist influences. And this cannot be overstated. Brothers and sisters, if you ever put yourself in a position in which you give yourself over to lying teachers, you are in defiance of this text. You may think you can be academic and rational about debating with them, but the appropriate thing would be to borrow from Polycarp and tell your Christ-denying religious impostor, I recognize Satan's firstborn when I see him. Shut the door in their face, John says. You see, John was a real shepherd. He was protecting his flock. The quickest way to contribute to the failure of false teachers is to shut the door and give them no affirming greeting at all. Their mouths, as we saw in Titus 1, must be silenced. And yet, to our chagrin, most of the visible church today is not willing to do this, but in fact is wholeheartedly embracing just the opposite. So how serious is this? By now we believe and confess we should do it for the love of the truth and for the honor of God. And that's absolutely correct. But John goes beyond that. Look at verse 11. For the one, and just a reminder here, not the one who lets him in the house, but the one who gives him a greeting participates in his evil deeds. Wow. That's koionos in the Greek. He is participating in fellowship. He's sharing. He's partaking literally in the evil works with him. We might call that an accessory to the crime, if you want to put it in American legal terms. That's amazing. Not only if you show hospitality, but beyond that, even if you offer him an affirming greeting, that no matter how much you don't know enough. In verse 12, having many things to write to you, I did not want to do so with paper and ink, but I hope to come to you and speak face to face, so that your joy may be made full. So John's beginning to sign off, telling us that there's more to know, just as he reminded this